We've all been there. We find a really cool bag of jewelry at a thrift store. We find a bunch of stuff at a garage sale. And we know we've seen people online talking about selling jewelry and making a really great profit or finding cool treasures to sell, but you just don't know where to start. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the top 10 most asked questions about getting started selling jewelry. Everything from what should I buy and where should I sell to how do I ship it, price it, and what kind of rules are on these different platforms that I want to sell on. I'm going to answer all those 10 questions today, and if you've got more, make sure you leave a comment so that I make sure I can address those needs for you. If you're new here, I'm Margaret. I've been selling online for over 10 years, making YouTube videos, helping people just like you. So if you enjoy videos like this, make sure you go down there and subscribe so you don't miss out on any content going forward. First question, let's jump right in. Where can I find jewelry to resell? There are so many different places that you can look for jewelry to resell. If you are on Facebook, you can go on a Facebook marketplace. A lot of times people sell jewelry, even lots of jewelry like this on Facebook marketplace. You might be able to find someone in your area that's selling lots of jewelry. My rule of thumb when buying bagged lots or jewelry jars, things like that, is I like to be able to see something in the bag that looks promising where I know I can start working back towards making my money back on the price that I paid for it. And sometimes they're wins, sometimes they're losses, but it is usually pretty fun. And almost always I am able to at least recoup the money I've made. But the goal again is to make a profit. But there are ways to do that. Again, if you sell the rest off as a craft lot, there are always ways to try to recoup your money. Another thing I've done in the past is if I've got a lot of stuff that's broken or missing stones that I don't want to go and create a jewelry craft lot with, is that I'll bag it up in my local thrift store, not the Goodwill, but like my charity store that's run by a organization. And I know back when I was in Texas, Savers, if you donate to the store, they give you a coupon for, sometimes at Savers it was 20% off your next purchase. So in that way, I'm still getting a little something back that I can use to buy something else that will I'll be able to sell in the future. Another place that you can look, outside of, say, Facebook Marketplace, is that some thrift stores do sell jewelry. And I know a lot of times we see these bags. Some of them, mine just started selling the bags again, but not every thrift store knows everything. I know there are people out there that say, oh, resellers are ruined it for everybody, and I never find good stuff anymore. But no one person can know everything. And I got these I believe at a thrift store. And yeah, so these are Kendra Scott earrings and they will sell for a really good price. So look through the things that are there at the thrift store. And it doesn't have to be gold and silver and diamonds in order to be a high ticket item. Some of the things that I have sold in the past for $100 have been costume jewelry. So there's definitely money to be made there. So check those thrift stores. Garage sales are another favorite of mine, finding really great stuff at garage sales. And then there are lots of other online options. ThredUp is really challenging. ThredUp has mystery boxes. The only thing about that is you don't get to see what's coming. So it is a complete mystery. They have two different options on ThredUp, but you never know when they're going to make those live. So you just really never know if you can get them or when. Another place is a site called Shop Goodwill, and it's an auction site online where they sell lots of jewelry. They sell individual pieces. When I was in Texas, there was an auction house that I would go to where I could get jewelry on auction there. And then on Fridays, there's a site called Goodwill Blue Box, and they have a specific time that they make those jewelry boxes live. And once again, those are completely blind, £5 that you pay, and you don't know what you're going to get. So it could be really fantastic. Could be a box of who knows what, right? It's jewelry, but it could be junk or whatever. Anyway, those are some of the options. There's definitely more options than just those, but that's a good starting off point. One of the next questions I get is, where should I sell my jewelry? Some of the people that have shared this question with me, they're hesitant to start on some of these online platforms like eBay and Etsy. Those two are my best platforms, eBay and Etsy, as far as selling jewelry. But I have sold on eBay, Etsy, Poshmark, Mercari, and Facebook Marketplace. All of these places I've done pretty well. I mean, Poshmark, I haven't sold as much there because a lot of times on Poshmark, people really are trying to get things for a pretty cheap price. So I don't tend to do that because I know the pieces that I'll sell will sell for more later. And I don't mind taking offers. On eBay, I have, best offer, where people can send me an offer. But if it's something kind of ridiculous, then I don't do that. Another place that people like to try to sell is on Whatnot, which is a live auction site. I've stepped back a little bit from that because for me, the amount of time and energy it took to set up the auctions and then perform the auctions and then ship out and then the fees, and it just didn't end up being worth it for me. I think there are sellers there that are fantastic that have they have regular shows, and so people know what to expect and when to be there, and so that works really well if that's the model you can work with. But for me personally, I can't say definitively I'm going to be there at Tuesday at 5 o'clock, or some sellers are like 6 o'clock every single day, and that's what they do, and they have people that know and they expect, and so that's really the key, I think, to success on that platform, in my opinion, as far as selling, especially jewelry. When it comes to these selling platforms, some of them have stricter requirements than others. So as far as eBay goes, you can sell pretty much any jewelry. There are some caveats to that, which I will get to at the end, because there are some things that they do not allow. And it's really important to know that up front so that you don't get suspended or banned from eBay. But beyond that, you can sell pretty much anything, whether it's old or new or brand new or what have you. And then on Etsy, which is my other favorite platform to sell on, in order to sell on Etsy, your items have to be vintage, which means 20 years or older, which is like 2004 or something like that at this point, which, anyway, don't get me started on that. So it has to be vintage, which isn't that hard as far as jewelry is concerned. It has to be a supply or something handmade that you handmade. It can't be a handmade piece that you bought from, Jill, your buddy down the road, and then you sell it. That really opens up a lot, though. For example, I've got this brooch, which is some sort of tropical bird. This is something I could sell on Etsy and eBay, whereas these Kendra Scott earrings I could sell on eBay. If I knew that these Kendra Scott earrings were 20 years or older, then I could sell them on eBay, but I'm not sure. I think they're pretty contemporary. And another question I get is, well, how do you know if this is vintage or not? For the most part, it's a best guess. It definitely looks vintage. There are sometimes maker's marks that will indicate, if it's Trifari or brands like that, Monet, then most likely it's going to be vintage. But if there isn't a way to definitively prove it, I think sometimes we get into this analysis, like over analyzing things. So this is something I would definitely list on Etsy as well. And then something like this, where it's a pendant that, I can't quite tell if it's going to be vintage or not. I would probably go ahead and list it because I think it's vintage. And there isn't a way for someone to point at it and say, that's definitely not vintage. With this, there's a way someone could point it out and say, I don't think that's vintage. And I have done this in the past because sometimes I get into my listing groove and I'm just chugging away and I'm listing on eBay and Etsy and eBay and Etsy. And sometimes things flip through and I'm like, oops. And luckily, most of the time people are very kind. One time I listed a Starbucks mug that was more contemporary and someone's like, that's not vintage. I'm like, oh, thanks. I missed that because I just get into the groove of list and don't stop sometimes and remember, oh wait, that's not vintage. I can't put that there. It happens. So don't overthink it. If someone tags it like, I don't think that's vintage, then, take a look at it and see, maybe they're right, maybe they're not. But you can make that discernment at that point. But then also, if the item, let's say I had a bunch of Kendra Scott earrings that were new, but they're missing all the stones, or I've got contemporary jewelry. Let's say I bought a bag. I'm going to keep using this one. And there were pieces in here that I know they're new, but they're broken or they're missing stones or what have you. And I make up a lot for a craft lot. And even though some of the stuff is under 20 years old, if I'm selling it as a supply, like a crafting supply, then I can sell it because now it's being sold as a supply to create something else. And it would fall into that category on Etsy and it would be okay to sell it then. So next question I get a lot is, how do I photograph jewelry to make it look good? And you can go as far as buying all this fancy schmancy equipment, but you don't have to. I started with nothing. For years and years and years, I prided myself on not spending any money to sell things. If you've got a smartphone with a camera, these cameras are fantastic. I would say when you set this up, when you go to your camera settings, if you have an iPhone like I do, but I know other phones as well, you can adjust the camera settings. If you've got a phone like this, my suggestion to you is right down here, there's a way to, as you can see, the camera is like rectangular. On eBay and Etsy, the photos are square. So if you select the ratio, there's a way to make it square. And that way, when you are taking your photos, once you're trying to put them into eBay and Etsy, you don't have to go back and crop them and make them square. Another thing that I do is that if you hold the screen down, if you press down with your finger, a little box will pop up with the sun. And here, let's look at my little birdie here on my desk. So if you tap and there's the sun, if you slide it up, it will automatically brighten up your picture. So let's say your lighting isn't the best, but you want your pictures to be bright and sunny. So you can do that, and then you've got your picture ready to be taken. This over here is bothering me because I can see a shadow, so I'm going to move that out of the way. But I mean, look, all I've got here is my table and my piece of jewelry, and I can take a picture just like that, and it looks pretty good. I mean, I've got a nice picture. Flip it over, make sure I get the back side of it, and there we go. Another thing that I would make sure if I'm taking pictures of my jewelry like this is that if there are any flaws, let's say scratches or wear, little bonus hair there, then I want to make sure that I have captured that. Let's say there were missing stones, then I would want to make sure that I captured that in my picture too. I don't think I brightened that one up. There's a way to make it stay to the brightness that you want, but I don't have that set up right now. And then if there are any maker's marks, then you'll want to make sure you capture those as well. Another thing I make sure that I have in my photos is I will make sure that I've got a picture with the measurements. Take that picture there, because some people like to see it next to the ruler. Even if you put in the description, it's 3 inches. It's a visual, like that picture's worth 1,000 words. Being able to see exactly what does that look like? I don't know. Some people will throw a penny in there for size comparison so that people can really make that connection to how big something actually is. Another thing I like to make sure I do, for example, I've got this piece of jewelry. I will make sure that I have taken a picture of, let's say it's a pendant like this one. I'll make sure that I've got a picture of the pendant itself. I want to make sure that I've got a picture of the length of the chain. This one, I will obviously take the tag off of that, but I want to make sure that I've got a picture of the full chain, and I will also take a picture of it with the measuring tape. And as you can see, I don't have a fancy measuring tape. This is just one that I got at a garage sale. That's one of my always buys at garage sales, estate sales. I get scissors and measuring tapes. What else? Things of that nature, because they always go missing in my house. So I'll make sure I get a measurement of the full chain. Sometimes I'll just take a picture of how long it is at this point, but a full picture here, pardon my messy desk. And let's say that I don't like that my picture has turned out sideways like this, but that was just the best angle I could get for my photo. I can always edit it here, rotate my picture so that it's upright. And for example, again, let's say I forgot to brighten my picture. Well, I can do that here on my phone as well by coming here and brightening my exposure up so that it looks a little bit better. Another thing that I'll want to make sure that I get is any marks. So if this has a mark on it saying 925, which I can see right there, then I will take a picture of that. A good rule of thumb is to try to not have your hands in the photos. I really try not to, but there are times, for example, with this pendant, there are pieces of amber that are so pretty that when you hold them up to the light, it captures the piece differently than when it's laying flat. It's sort of flat and dull like so. But when you've got it with the light shining through it, it looks so much prettier. So you could either, make sure your nails look clean and nice, because you'll get comments, believe me, or just hold it up close where, sorry, it's a little wobbly, where you can see through the light the best you can. Let me try to hold it the other way, or hold it by the chain. Maybe if I do it like that and lean it against the table so that my fingers are not involved, then you can get a nice picture of the light shining through. That's not the best picture. So sometimes you have to take a couple to make it work, like so. There we go. And just hold your phone and up close, zoom it in on your phone, because if you do that with your fingers, spread them apart like that, you can zoom in. But now I've gotten a picture of the maker's mark or the 925 and the features of the pendant. Another question I get as far as photographing and prepping your jewelry to sell is, do I clean my jewelry? And the answer is it depends. So this piece I probably won't clean. It came out of a jewelry bag. It doesn't feel grimy or gross. There's nothing on it that I can see. And so I'll just list it like this. Sometimes you'll get lots of jewelry where they feel kind of grimy and gross. And I'll just take a damp cloth and wipe over them depending on what the material is. But for the most part, it's all fine. And then when it comes to tarnished pieces like this, I will not shine this up. I don't think it will benefit to shine this up because there are people that really like this tarnished look. And it's, as I say, a lot easier to get it off than to get the tarnish on. It takes time and a while for it to get all tarnished up again. And if someone likes it like that, then having it all shiny might take away. So if somebody wants it shiny, they can get it and shine it up themselves, which is fine with me. I will say though, if sometimes it's so tarnished it's almost black, at that point I will take the time to shine something up. So there's that. I will also say that on pieces like this, I will also take a picture of the clasp, especially if there are marks on the clasp, like the maker's mark, or if it's sterling silver 925, things like that. I'll take a picture of that as well. One last thing about taking photos of jewelry, if you've got a piece that's super shiny, or maybe you've got a piece that you need to hang it on a mannequin or something, there are photo boxes. This is a little pop-up one, I have it upside down, that you can use, because sometimes when you've got a shiny piece like this and the light, you've got a light, just a regular light bulb or something like that, and it's hard to get that picture and it's just not capturing it because the light is so harsh, then having a little pop-up box like this can be really helpful. It's not necessary, but because there's ways to diffuse the light to keep that from happening. But this is one option that you could do, is get one of these little light pop-up boxes. I'll link this one down below. And they have them all sizes, big, small. And I know a lot of people use mannequins, or those little jewelry forms. I have used them in the past, but a lot of times I just flat lay the piece, and I haven't found that I'm really lacking needing the mannequin or the the jewelry forms, things like that. Some people prefer that, some people don't, and it's just totally up to you. This piece leads right into our next question, which is how do I authenticate my jewelry? Whether you've got a piece of jewelry that's like this, that's marked 925, or you've got a pair of earrings that you know are Kendra Scott, but they're not marked, or you've got, say, a Tiffany bracelet and you're not sure if it's real, how do you go about making sure that you're not selling something that is fake, or you've got something that you want to prove that that's what it is in your listing? So let's start with testing jewelry. This piece is tarnished up pretty good, so I'm pretty confident that this is sterling silver. But the things that you can do pretty easily at home is, one, have a jewelry magnet. This isn't technically a jewelry magnet, but I use this one. And if your piece of, if you think it's silver or gold, and if it is not attracted to the magnet, you might be onto something. But if you've got a necklace that says it's silver, but it slaps right to that magnet, then you're probably looking at something with a fake stamp on it. So that's one way. And if you want to start moving forward, like if you're selling a lot of jewelry and this becomes an issue where you're like, I've got a lot of silver here, I've got a lot of things that are marked, I need to know for sure if this is silver or if this is gold, then getting an acid testing kit at home is really beneficial. And I've got many videos showing how to use those. I always protect my hands with gloves because it is acids, but it's really super easy to do at home to test silver, to test gold, and that way you can show in your listing, you know, a picture of it being tested for gold or silver and that it came out as what it says it is, what it's marked as. If you don't have that yet, then what you can do in your listing is to say it's not magnetic, because that's pretty easy to show at home. It's not magnetic, it's marked 925, and then in your description, make sure you put untested so that when the person gets it, they're not saying, hey, you said it was sterling silver. In your listing, you've got yourself covered where it says, well, it's not tested. I wasn't able to go and prove it. So they knew at that point. So they wouldn't be able to come back and say that it was item not as described, or you were trying to defraud them or something like that. As far as my Kendra Scott earrings, luckily for me, these are ones that I can still find the original listings for to show the comparison and to show that they were sold without any kind of maker's mark on them. So when it comes to something like that, I can definitely get that image to show that it is an authentic piece. Some stores will authenticate it for you for free. A lot of stores will require a payment for that. For example, Tiffany, if you have a piece that you're wanting to get authenticated, they do charge to authenticate it. In some cases, they'll want to send it away to go get it authenticated and then send it back. But there are a lot of sites, there are a lot of groups that will help you authenticate a piece because, I mean, say with Tiffany, that's one that's faked a lot, and it really helps you to make sure that you've got an authentic piece if you're going to sell it on eBay or Etsy. The next question I get a lot is, how do I write a good title and what do I put in the description to make sure that my item gets found in search? This is a ring that I sold that is sterling silver and garnet. And this is the way I wrote my title. I wanted to make sure that right up front, I put the most important words. I probably could have left off vintage, but it is a medallion cluster garnet ring. And I want to make sure that what the item is made of and what it is probably within the first 5 words. I do think now, looking back at this listing, that I could have gone ahead and put silver, sterling silver, in the first 5 words versus vintage or medallion. So I probably should have started this listing with sterling silver garnet ring and then moved on to, I want to see the materials it's made of, sterling silver and garnet. I want to see the style that it is. So this is a cluster, medallion. I want to see, like, if it's a ring like this with stones, how are those stones set? Are they set like with prongs? Or are they bezel set where they're set into the metal like these are? There are different websites to help you figure out like how they're set and what the words are for that. And then the cuts of the stones. So I've got round cut, I've got marquee cut. And then because the stone is a birthstone, I know that somebody might be looking for a present for someone that was born in January. And this is a January birthstone. So put that in there. And there are people that like different stones and gemstones for metaphysical reasons. And so I put root chakra because that is one of the stones that coordinates with the chakra system. And then as far as my description goes, I keep it pretty straightforward. I put the description. A lot of times it's just the title that I put as the description, then I might add a few extra key details. Then I will make sure to put the measurements, any marks that the item might have, if it's got a brand, if there are any marks. And then I will put the condition, and I almost never put excellent condition or really good condition, or I try to undersell and over deliver. So I will put that, say it's lightly cleaned, that there's some slight wear, small dings to the metal, there's tarnish to the silver, so that they don't come back and say, hey, there was a little scratch on it, and I didn't say, oh, there might be some dings. I have had people message me and like, you say that it's in, fair condition, I don't see any condition issues. I'm like, well, I just want to cover my bases, because sometimes it's a Lego box and there's like a little dent in the side of it, and some people like their Lego boxes pristine, and I missed a scratch or a little ding in it, and you think, oh, it's no big deal, but to somebody else, it is a big deal. So making sure, and as with all the photos that I take, I try to make sure I get all the different angles that I can for the ring or the whatever the item might be. And let's see if I did it on this one. So I've got my measurement, and usually, there you go, I'll get a picture of it with the mandrel, and that's my old mandrel. So mandrel is a ring sizer, so I get the picture of it. So if I have said that that's one thing I didn't put on here. Haha. Oh no, I did. There it is. Ring size. Make sure I put the size on there. So not only do they see the ring size in the words, they can see the ring size in the pictures. It also covers you if the person gets the ring and it says, oh, you said it was a size 6.5 and it was like not that size. You can show in the pictures like, nope, there it is in the pictures, 6.5 or 6.75, and then with the measuring tool. If all of this is kind of setting your head spinning, like, I don't know how I would find out how to describe this thing, that seems like so much work. There is a quick workaround. If you come to Google, so here I've got my item uploaded right there, and when I scroll down, I can see all of these different rings that look similar to mine. May not be the same exact one, but it certainly gives me a lot to work with as far as what is it made of? What is this stone? I don't know what this stone is. Well, now I can see, oh, garnet, 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 over and over and over. And I can see, oh, this is a cluster ring. Okay. I can see all the different ways that people have described their item to list it, and it will give me ideas for how to list my item. So clicking into these different rings and seeing how they described it, what words they used, will give you a great jumping off point for creating your listings. And this leads right into the next question, which is, how do I price the jewelry I've got? So great, I've got these earrings, I've got this ring. How do I know if I should put it at $10 or $200? Well, this is where I come. Again, you can do this through Google. A lot of people will go through eBay, which I'll show you that as well. And you want to see what kinds of prices other people have on their items, but that's not the only way, because these items, for the most part, are probably items that are still for sale, which means they haven't sold yet, obviously. And you want to know what the price is currently, but you also want to know what kinds of things have been selling and at what price. So what I'll do here is I'm going to select a few of these to open in a new tab. So I'm on my computer, because it's an Apple, I hit Command and I click the mouse button. Sometimes on these Etsy listings, they still will show the sold listings. So you might be able to find some that have sold, which helps. Now, I'm not clicking on, say, Blue Ribbon Rarities and some of these others for price, because those are private sites that they can ask whatever price they want, right? So I'm dropping these in, and let's take a peek. Okay, so that one, this is the eBay one. It didn't show up, which is fine. So here on Etsy, I see a couple of garnet rings. This one is up for $79, but I also see that it's got an amethyst there. So let's keep moving. This one is just pulling up the QVC jewelry. Aha, here we go. Here's one similar to mine that is up for $94. I see another one here, $128. There's quite a few there. Oh, I wonder if I undersold mine. It was a few years ago though. But here we've got a few others. These are set in gold, so that might also affect the price. That one's up for $98. That looks pretty similar to mine. $41. So I'm seeing a few different prices around here. $98. Now, what I want to do is, because I also do want to go check on eBay. So let's say I say sterling silver. I'm just going to copy that part. Sterling silver garnet cluster ring. And I'm going to go to eBay. And I want to search eBay to see what pops up here. Fantastic. So there's like 4,000 results for sterling silver garnet cluster ring. But what I'm going to do is scroll down, 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 all the way to sold items. I'm going to click sold items, and then this will pull up the items that have sold in the last 90 days. These are sorted by what has ended recently or sold the most recently. And at this point, you can scroll down and start looking to see what kind of prices have these items sold at. And you'll notice here, like, wow, that looks really low. But if you see here where it says one bid, a lot of these are on auction, which is something I don't do. Some people, they just sell in bulk, in mass, and so they just put it on an auction and they let it run and then it sells. That's not the way I sell. So what I'll do is come to buying format, and I want to select buy it now, which will just let me know, like, I'm putting my price on it and I'm selling it like that. Here's one that sold for $36. And even though some of these are not exactly like mine, it gives me a little more room to figure out like what's similar to mine, at least. And I can always go in and add more keywords to try to narrow it down to get it closer to something like I've got. Here's one that's similar-ish. It looks vintage, and this one sold for $45. Here's another that's a little similar. See here, this one's set with prongs versus the bezel set like I've got. This one sold for $44. And you might notice that there are, the darker red garnets. There are the lighter garnets. So it's another listing in the title, putting that it's that dark red, because some people prefer the darker red versus the lighter red. And there are different colors of garnets, which I have learned. And it's nice to hear. It makes it a lot easier if you want your item to be found if someone's looking for that dark, deep red versus the lighter red garnets. I think that will give you a pretty good idea on how to start looking for a price for your item. I do get the question a lot about, do I put my things on auction? And for the most part, I do not. There is a rare time where I've got something, usually it's vintage toys. I've sold Star Wars play sets, like old vintage Star Wars play sets, on auction, because I see prices kind of all over the place. That has to do with condition. It has to do with the pieces that are there, the pieces that are missing, and I don't know how much that would go for. And so I will put it at an auction price, and my rule of thumb is start that auction at the price you're happy to take. Because if you started at a 99-cent auction and this $500 Star Wars vintage playset sells for $10, well, you've got to honor that or get a bad review or a bad, so that's something you'll have to honor. And that's not something I was willing to do. So there were a few times that I have put something on auction, but for the most part, it's not the way I run my business. Again, there are people that are very successful for that, but I think it's also that the people that follow their shop know, okay, we got a new batch of stuff coming in on auction. Let me go see what they've got. Let me go bid on their auctions. And that ends. And then the next week or however they schedule it, they've got another batch of stuff coming up on auction. And they just keep things moving that way. But I don't do that. So, all right, now you've got some jewelry. It looks pretty cool, but it doesn't have a maker's mark. And you don't know what to do or how to sell it. I have gotten this question so many times, and I feel for the people that ask these questions, because they will take the jewelry that's not marked and they'll just redonate it, not realizing that they could be redonating something that's very, very valuable. If you've got unmarked jewelry, you absolutely can still sell it. You just need to know how to describe your item, because this is an unmarked piece, but let's say it was Monet, which is a jewelry brand. But if they don't know Monet makes a tropical bird brooch, then they won't know to search Monet, and they're just looking for a tropical bird brooch. Or, I have a friend who loves orchids, so she'll search for orchid jewelry. It doesn't matter if it's made by Trifari, Monet, Tiffany. It's orchids, and that's what she's looking for. This ring is a vermeil ring. So this one is sterling silver, but let's say it's like, it doesn't have a brand. I don't know what to do, how to list this. Same process, go drop your pictures into the Google image search to get all of those keywords for your item, and then just start listing it based on what it looks like. And you absolutely can make really good money selling jewelry that is unbranded, unmarked, doesn't have to be sterling silver, doesn't have to be a well-known brand, because sometimes people are just looking for a certain look. They're looking for a certain animal. They're looking for, you never know what somebody is out there trying to find to buy. So just list it and see what happens. You've made it through listing. Now what? You've got your item, you've listed your item, and now you've made a sale. What do you do? The next biggest question I get is, how do I ship this jewelry? Let me tell you the different ways I ship jewelry. My two go-to ways are using these. They're padded mailers. They've got padding on the inside. And if my item isn't something like this, so you see how these have these little stones? I won't ship it in a padded mailer like this, because these little stones could get dislodged and come off in a package like that. If I've got jewelry that's just like these earrings, these earrings, let's say, they don't have something that's going to break off if I were to ship them in a padded mailer like this. But I don't just throw them in there. I have different baggies. I've got different sizes of these velvet pouches, and I have some of these little organza pouches in different sizes. So I'll put my piece of jewelry in these, depending on the size. And I have thank you cards, which I forgot to bring over here, but I will wrap my thank you around this to pad it just a little bit more. So it'll have the card, it's like postcards. So it's like one piece, and it folds around that. And then I just slide it right into my bag here. And I've got other videos where I walk through this step by step. And then this will be ready to go out. And if it's a piece like this, that might have something that will come off, or maybe is a little more fragile. Say these pieces that have this stone in them, they're a little more fragile. So I don't want to put those into a padded mailer. I've got a couple things that I might do. Either I will still use a pouch, or I've got these little boxes that have the foam inside, and I won't just put it like on top of the foam, because that will rattle around, and I don't go buy extra foam. So I take this foam piece inside and I pull it in half, and I put the side that's all fuzzy, I put it down so it still looks nice, like so. And then I dropped it. Then I'll put my piece in, and I'll put the other piece of foam that I pulled in half of on top of that. That way it's got a little more cushion and it's not banging around in there like so. Just that little bitty tip for you there. And then this will go into one of, this is my favorite size box. This is a 6x4x4 box. These I bought on Uline. You can get them anywhere, but it's my favorite one because it's small enough but sturdy enough that it will hold the item in there. And I get tissue paper from thrift stores, garage sales. Whenever I find, like at an estate sale, a lot of times they'll have like all the Christmas and packing stuff, and they'll have just masses of tissue paper. And I've gotten so much tissue paper for $1 that I'll use that. If the pieces of tissue paper are giant, then I just cut them in half. So I can get, 2 uses out of one sheet. I'll put part of the tissue on the bottom, and then I'll put the piece in. I'll fold the rest of the tissue over it, and then I put my thank you card on top there and send it out. And I do send a thank you card. I have some that I got made up on Vistaprints, but forever, as I told you, I didn't order anything special for my business for many years, and I would just pick up thank you cards or blank note cards, what have you, from garage sales when people would have a big shoebox full of cards and they would like $1 for the whole box. I would just take those. I still have a bunch of them in there. I just use those and write my thank you note in there. Just a quick thanks so much for your purchase. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoy. And then send that off. But now I have some that are printed up. One thing I don't do is I don't reach out and try to get feedback. I know it's really tempting, especially in the beginning when you're first starting. You might put in the note, like, really, if you love it, I'd really appreciate a review. That would be it, but just for me, it's like, don't poke the bear. If they don't love it, you don't want to hear, right? No news is good news in my books. Another thing you'll need is a scale. And I picked this up at probably a garage sale or estate sale. And it's a food scale. I had a different one for a while, but this one weighs a little more in pounds. The other one I had was, I think, a Weight Watchers weight scale. And it didn't go up to multiple pounds. I think this one goes up to maybe 8 pounds or 10 pounds. So I got this one, and I actually did just get a little postal scale. It looks like this, but it was at a garage sale too. So I haven't ordered anything special. I did a while back order a big one that would weigh like boxes of books, like really heavy postal scale, back when I used to send things into Amazon, but I don't do that anymore. So I think I gave that one away to somebody. Next question is, should I accept returns? And my answer is yes. There are some people that get really wound up about returns, and they, I told eBay I put that in my specifics, I don't accept returns, and they made me take a return anyway. And it's just part of doing business. And of course it's going to suck. You don't want to have to, have the item sent back to you, and it's it's a hassle. Sometimes there's people that, they send back something broken, and you can, try to fight that with eBay and say, look, this didn't go out this way. I don't want to have it, and it's just kind of a pain. But truly, it's just part of doing business. I don't get that many returns at all. I think if you are taking really good pictures and you're listing your item with all the details, not leaving anything out, then that can really help a lot. If you're leaving off condition issues, or, I forgot to take a picture of the back of the item, the person gets it, for whatever reason, they don't want it, and they're going to send it back. I mean, just imagine yourself being in that position. You get something you don't like, and you want to send it back. Of course, you want the person to take it back. And as a seller, sometimes you're like, I just know they're trying to scam me. But not everybody's trying to scam you. Yeah, there are people out there that are operating on bad pretenses, but it's not everybody. So I would say just take the return, relist the item, and if you want to, relist it for a little more to try to recoup if you had to pay for the shipping back. It's just part of doing business, and eBay and Etsy pretty much require that you accept returns at this point. It's good for their business, because if I'm shopping on a platform that doesn't allow returns, chances are I don't know about that. My kid just bought shoes from, I think it was StockX or something like that, and I don't think they accept returns. So I was like, if they don't fit and then you don't like them, then we're going to have to just relist them on StockX and try to sell them again. Luckily they fit, yay. But I'm really hesitant as a consumer to buy something from a site that doesn't accept returns because it really boxes me in to, I better like it. And the last one is really important. This one has to do with, are there any specific eBay policies as far as selling jewelry online? And there are. eBay and Etsy, pretty much every platform has got really strict rules when it comes to certain items. Some of these I found out the hard way. Some of them, luckily, I learned before I listed items that would get me into trouble. Early on, I found a brooch, and it looked like a Chanel brooch, but I knew that it was a knockoff Chanel brooch. So it had, the C's, and it looked like, I don't know, bamboo or something like that, but I knew it wasn't authentic. And I did not know, because I was such a new seller, I didn't know, and I know you might laugh at it, but it's true, I didn't know that I couldn't list it. I was like, well, I'm not trying to defraud anybody. I'm saying it's faux Chanel brooch. I didn't understand at that point the whole industry as far as counterfeits and things like that go. I understand now, but you have to keep in mind, if you're not in that world, and it's not, because I came from being a teacher, elementary school, I didn't know anything about like the ins and outs of selling counterfeits, and I had no idea. So I listed it, and I got a strike on eBay. I got a notification saying they took it down, and I think I got maybe a 3-day suspension or something. I couldn't list or sell for 3 days. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh, I had no idea, but I put faux and da-da-da-da. It was a learning experience, right? I moved forward knowing something I didn't know before, which is fantastic. So if you've got, say, like these Tiffany items, you want to make sure that you know what it is before you list it. And another thing that I've done a lot of videos on is being able to recognize certain materials. For example, ivory and bone. There are very strict rules about selling ivory and bone, and basically it's don't even try to sell ivory, especially because you have to have documentation that it was made before a certain, it was like in the 40s or 20s. You have to have the provenance basically showing that it was made before these certain laws went into effect. And most of the time, as you're buying it and you maybe get it into a lot of jewelry like this and you're not expecting it, you're like, whoa, I've got some ivory here, now what? Don't try to list it. I have had people, when I've done these jewelry videos, I've had people message me privately saying, I'll buy it from you privately. I'm like, I don't want to get into trouble. So, because it's against the law. So no, I just have a little collection of ivory now that I am using for educational purposes, but there are different organizations you can send it to. And so the videos that I've made showing people how to distinguish between ivory and bone and some of the other materials that are made from, say, nuts, or there are certain plastics that mimic ivory. Being able to know what you've got not only will help you when you're listing your item to be able to show, I know that this is not ivory, here's how I know, and it will keep them from coming back and saying, you sold me ivory, or if you list it, and I've seen this happen. I was on the fence about it because it was a seller who had beautiful photographs of their jewelry. And then there was an item that was clearly an ivory bead necklace, and it was really kind of fuzzy and dark. And the listing was really kind of vague. And I was like, I think they know exactly what they're doing here. They're trying to have it fly under the radar and have somebody buy it, which is not worth losing your store over. It's not worth any kind of fines that might come through if it was on a bigger level, right? I don't know if they would go after little sellers, but I wouldn't want to chance it personally as far as that goes. So knowing what you've got and being able to identify that is really important. There's also other things such as tortoiseshell. There's tortoiseshell. It can Bakelite. There are types of plastics that can mimic tortoiseshell, but if you've got real tortoiseshell, there's ways to tell, and you can't sell that either. So being able to identify that kind of stuff. So if you get something that's questionable, you're not sure, set it aside And then when you have time, do a little research, or, I have a jewelry group on Facebook called Texas Gals Jewelry Lovers. And you can put the item there, send a picture and say, look, I looked this up. I don't really know how to figure out the rest of this. I did a search, I did this, I did that. Can anybody give me some pointers to help me make sure I'm identifying this correctly? And we're really strict in that group about not being ugly, because there are some jewelry groups out there. There are some jewelry sellers that are pretty nasty and will just like make you feel stupid. Or, I mean, even when earlier I'm making videos about selling jewelry, and there were people in the comments like trying to make me feel dumb, like, I don't hide that I don't know everything. So if there's something I don't know, I'm not afraid of saying like, oh, I'm not sure what this is. I'm going to have to do a little research on that. And, oh my gosh, what are you doing talking about jewelry? You don't even know what that is? It's like no one person knows all things. So don't be down on yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. If you come across something that you're like, I don't know what to make of this, don't let somebody else make you feel that you're in the wrong space because you don't know what something is, because truly there is nobody out there that knows all the things. Well, there's probably, as you might say, one certain thing out there that knows all things, but no one human being knows all things. So be easy on yourself. I am very excited for you to get started selling jewelry. It's one of my favorite things to thrift, and it's one of my favorite things to sell, because it truly does feel, I'll hold my bag up again, it truly does feel like you're going on a treasure hunt when you're, out garage selling and you find jewelry, or when you're at a thrift store and you're like, ooh, treasure. Let's see what we can find in here. I see a cute little ring that I want to open this up for right now, but we'll have to do that later because I want to make that into a video. If you enjoyed this video in any way, please go down there, leave a comment and like, because it helps my channel and it helps YouTube get my videos pushed out to more people that can use this information. And I am sending you the best wishes in the whole wide world for your journey. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.